In a few moments, you will have an experience which will seem completely real. It will be the result of your subconscious fears transformed to your conscious awareness. You have 5 seconds to terminate this tape. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome back to another We Are So Back Wednesday, another BGcast Wednesday live podcast. I'm officially off call. Thank goodness, because being on call always sucks. But nonetheless, I'm grateful to finally get that leash off of me and actually sit down and have an amazing show tonight. I have an amazing guest. I'm really looking forward to chatting with him. But nonetheless, let's kind of dive into it right away. So I want to thank all of the new subscribers and followers over on Rumble and YouTube. Thanks so much for joining the BGcast family, where we learn together, guys. Like I say all the time, we are in this unknown, uncharted, strange territory, at least for this batch of humanity currently on the planet. And, I am learning just as much as you guys, even though I've been, on my spiritual evolution for 18 years. I will still tell you, I don't have everything figured out and I don't know it all. I sure as hell don't. I am always surprised on a daily basis nowadays. I am always shown things that I used to think were truth are wrong. And that's the premise here, guys. And that's why I always say we have to always stay open and we always have to stay receptive to any kind of new remembrances or realizations, because the truth we know today might not be the truth that we know tomorrow. So nonetheless, guys, of course, a word from our two sponsors. You guys know about Divine Creation Gifts. I'm going to bring up their page real quick. And again, I can't say this enough, guys. This is how we start New Earth. This is the foundation for New Earth. We support the people in our community. We support the homegrown businesses, the homegrown entertainment, the homegrown musicians, the homegrown comedians, the homegrown artists, everybody who is partaking and bringing their talents to the table to give you PSYOP-free entertainment, PSYOP-free products, nothing with chemicals, no propaganda included, guys. So this is how we start New Earth. So guys, I want you to head over to Divine Creation Gifts and I want you to check them out. It is a homegrown metaphysics store. Of course, if you use the code FREESHIP50, you get free shipping on orders over $50. And of course, guys, this is a great metaphysics shop. You got a lot of crystals. Of course, you can see some selenite pyramids hanging out over here, and they have a lot of great stuff, man. They have apparel and merch, apothecary and herbals. They got tools and supplies for rituals and ceremonies, and they have crystals and jewelry. So guys, if you are looking to support a homegrown business, you need to get some new crystals, because we know a lot of people in our community, they are crazy about crystals. I myself included am a crystal fan. So yeah, head on over to Divine Creation Gifts and go ahead and support them, you guys. And of course, when I talk about entertainment, hey Diana, what's up? And hey other Phil, Cosmic Voice, what's going on? When I talk about New Earth Entertainment, guys, my friend David the Lion is really what I would call the frontiersman of New Earth Entertainment. Let me bring up his page for you guys. I can't be proud of this man enough. He was actually featured in a newspaper article about how he was using ancient archetypes and comic books. So proud of you, David. I just want you to know that, man. And yes, go support his comics. He has the Lion of God comic collection. I've shown my first edition issue on the show before. Again, guys, you're getting PSYOP and propaganda-free entertainment. This comic book is great for spiritual parents who want to give their kids something enjoyable to read that spiritually enriches them. And it's not full of any BS or anything that's inappropriate, which I really love because it is family friendly. It's good for adults and kids. And his short film, Dear Lilith, I Love You, actually won Best Director at a New York Film Festival. So yes, guys, this is New Earth Entertainment. It's beginning, and I couldn't be more excited for it, guys, because this is what we have to do. We have to start putting our foot forward and building this foundation. And these two individuals, they're putting their feet forward and they're building this foundation. And I know there's a lot of people in the chat, and especially my guests, who are also putting their feet forward and building the foundation for New Earth. But nonetheless, let's get to my guest. So I had an amazing time. I had an amazing conversation when I was on his show. I was on his show a few weeks back. And I got to say, him and I, we resonated on such a deep level that if we did not cut the show off at 2 hours, we probably would have continued and kept going. And him and I are very similar in the way we see things. So it's going to be really good to kind of talk about these topics I have lined up for us tonight. Because I'm kind of interested to pick his brain, but he is the head of the Unexplained INC podcast. He is the man, the myth, the legend. We have Mr. Phil Water. What is up, man?
Steven, so good to be with you. Thanks for the rousing introduction, man.
Absolutely, dude. I always try to do all of my guests justice, man. And since I had such a great time on your show, I'm looking forward to sitting down and having you on my show, especially since you just got out of a drum circle. I'm sure you're feeling pretty pumped.
I am, yeah. It wasn't as big of a turnout as some previous ones I've had, but it was just as impactful and just as powerful. And I'm actually taking a break from those until middle of January because I am so busy with various things. But Stephen, before we really get going tonight, there's one thing I want to bring up about our chat that we had late summer. So for those of you who don't know, this Unexplained Incorporated is the podcast where the unknown connects with the empowered. So it's like a blending of the paranormal and the unexplained and spirituality. And through various channels, I got in touch with Stephen earlier in the summer, and we were like, let's do this in September, and it delivered. And this aired on Friday, September 5th, because my episodes air Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, all audio outlets, and on Rumble as well. But one thing that was so interesting about that chat was, do you remember, Stephen, when I brought up a quote to you, and I don't remember where it came from, but it was about the world was just louder and not meaner, and that we thought, despite all the craziness, that collective consciousness was on the rise? You remember that?
Yep. I do remember that.
So what happened the following week after that episode aired? Well, if you forgot, I'll remind you, things in the collective went off the friggin' rails. We had cold-blooded murder, a major assassination, natural disasters all over the world, heated protests in France, and a governmental overthrow in Nepal, which got really insane. And all of these events happened in the span of a week, and they kind of made us look like fools because we're saying one thing and then the opposite is happening. It's just really crazy pendulum we're living in right now.
I would completely agree, man. And this is what I kind of think on this. And, and don't get me wrong, I'm not tooting our horns when I say this. I'm just being observant and kind of what I see. So these conversations that we have, man, are way more powerful than we could ever imagine. Yeah. They are. And we I remember talking with you on your show about, think of the collective consciousness as a giant. Diana was actually the one who inspired me on this analogy, but think of the collective consciousness as this giant lake. And every time you increase in consciousness or you increase in frequency, or we have these conversations, it's the equivalent of tossing a decent sized rock into that lake. And then what happens is this ripple starts to form throughout the whole lake. And the reason why I think this, and this is no coincidence. So I'll tell you this story real quick, and then we'll get to your story for sure. So I did a show back at the beginning of season 3 called Common Ground. Right. And I had somebody from the right and somebody from the left sit down in the same room. and actually have somewhat of a civil conversation. Like, yes, it was successful. I was so happy about how successful it was. And really in this conversation, these two people learned that they aren't much different from each other at all. Like, and a lot of these issues that the media uses to divide the right and the left, they aren't as black and white as the media makes them out to be. And I tell you, it was probably one of the biggest batches of progress I think I've ever made in my career doing these shows. So I was really happy to see that. But dude, like they tried shadow banning the hell out of that show. I had to literally share it, dude, a collective 30 times
Oh,
in as many places as I possibly could in order for it to get any kind of views or anything. And it got a decent bit of views. But dude, I kid you not, 2 days later, Trump puts that ban on the observance of Gay History Month, Black History Month, all of that stuff. And like, I'm sitting there like, look, I don't want to say that I had something to do with this, but I'm going to say it's kind of like we had like this massive hit of progress in our collective consciousness, right? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they go ahead and they try to damage what I feel was the progress that I did. And, like trying to, I actually had somebody from the right and the left at the end to like have respect for each other and actually be kind of friendly with each other. And I was like, oh my God, I did something great. And then, yeah, that happened, dude. So this is what I'm going to say. What we're doing here is powerful, man. And we can't discount that.
Yeah, a couple of things I'd like to say to that is, first of all, yes, they are scared. And the more scared they're going to get, the more anxious they're going to get, the more controlling they're going to get. And I think things are going to get a little bit tense. And generally speaking, that's how narcissists tend to behave. And I'm speaking from experience because I encountered some key ones in my late teens and my adult life. So I kind of know what I'm talking about in that regard. And also, yeah, with that being said, I think moving forward, content like you and I, some of the people in the chat and many others are making, I think are going to begin to be closely monitored once again because they're scared. And don't underestimate who's tuning in and who's listening, because even if you're not doing the bigger numbers, and I don't have the biggest platform in the world, but there are some downloads I see on my hosting server where I'm like, I wonder if this is so and so, or I put the imagination and the speculation together. And I had to laugh at your mention of 30 times because I feel if you shared it 33 times, it would have blown up. And I want to circle back briefly to an exchange we had on Instagram a little while ago where you were talking about the 33 and shadow banning. And I was like, Steven, you're not going to believe this.
Yeah.
The first 2 weeks of our chat, thankfully it's grown a lot since, but the Rumble views for our chat in the first half of September, I swear, was stuck at 33. So when you mentioned that in that post, it absolutely blew my mind. And it's like, yeah, somebody's feathers are getting ruffled right now. So don't underestimate who's actually tuning into all this.
Oh, dude, I'm going to be the first to tell you this. And I've had enough of my own personal experiences, and I've heard the experiences of others when it comes to what I'm about to say. We are definitely monitored to a very high degree. We definitely are. Because in my eyes, we are the ultimate threat. We are the ultimate threat because we're discerning, sovereign individuals who have connected with our divine spark, and we see through the illusion that they are trying to portray to the rest of the collective. And oh yeah, dude, I can't even begin to tell you. I mean, every single social media platform shadow bans my shows. And that's why I have to do, highlight followers and stuff on Facebook, X and IG. I just kind of leave it to the wind. It is what it is. But no, on every single platform. And I was even shadow banned on Rumble for a little bit until I actually reached out to Rumble and I wrote them a long, lengthy email. And I said, you guys say you don't shadow ban. And then when I would go type my name and my podcast in the search engine, my show wouldn't even come up. like I would have to dig for it, and then that ended up getting fixed. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. That ended up getting fixed after I sent them that email. So we'll see how it goes. But dude, we're monitored and observed to a very high degree. They don't want somebody like us getting a main seat on the world stage, because if somebody like us got a main seat on the world stage, it would be absolute end game for their agenda.
And I think I can speak on behalf of myself, yourself, and everybody tuning in right now. We're too kind to be on the world stage in these positions. Like, we don't fit the narcissistic, borderline psychopathy that seems to be a requirement to get in those positions in the first place. So you're right. If an individual or a governing body or a group would ever get into those positions and find their way into their own power, it would be game over, right?
It'd be absolutely. Well, dude, you're absolutely right, because look at what our collective society puts on a pedestal, man. You said it perfectly. It puts egotism, narcissism, sociopathy, psychopathy on a pedestal. And you look at all of these big name podcasters, especially the ones that say they represent our community. And I'm doing that with quotations because we all know that they were chosen to do that. You do, man. And I'm not going to name names, but you look at the top podcasters for our kind of niche and what we're doing. It's all kind of dysfunctional BS. It's not really anything that's solution based or solution oriented to overcoming the current situation at hand, whether they're telling dick jokes or they're freaking or other things as well. Yeah, man, it's not. So like that's why you see these people are chosen. And I do agree, Cosmic Voice 33, it is infiltration. And the reason why I can say that soundly is, I don't know if you know this, Phil, there's a track record for the infiltration. And, you talk about CIA Operation Chaos. You talk about the FBI's COINTELPRO, and you look at Operation Prosperity. These were all operations to infiltrate counterculture and dissident movements, to dissolve, disengage, and destroy them practically. And a lot of these, intelligence agency programs, they don't have conclusive end dates. So that tells you they're still going on.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing with my show too is that I don't claim to be a conspiracy pod, but I will go into those topics when need be. And I look at myself as almost like the gateway drug into that world, right? Because there are a lot of great hosts, a lot of great content creators, great shows diving deeper into that sort of thing. And I feel like it's my job, and the size of my platform is to get people's eyes and ears on the bigger shows doing the things that are right and will do them better than me. And I don't normally get into the geopolitical either unless it's absolutely necessary. So it's like, say I'm like that first little doobie that'll get you to the psychedelics or whatever. Because I don't know, I feel like that's mostly my role when it comes to the conspiratorial part of things, because everybody's got their role and everybody's got their niche. And I think just generally speaking, in terms of content creation and in this avenue, there's nothing worse than someone either A, piggybacking on someone else's research and work, or B, someone railing and raging to pretend to be something that they're not, or pretend that they have knowledge over something that they really don't know. And you said it at the beginning of the show. I've said it plenty of times on my show. I am no authority of truth. I share my truth, and my guests share their truth. And over the years, it just makes me laugh when I've had people tell me this either through DMs or in person. They say, I had to shut off your show because I was really upset at what that guest said. And I'm like, okay. I don't know what that has to do with me, but like, I'm not here to attack guests on their beliefs and their views. And there's been some really far out ones, as you can imagine, over the last 5 years I've been doing this. But because you're triggered by something someone else said and I just happen to be sharing space with them, that doesn't go on me. Like, that doesn't reflect 100%. On me. And I find it really fascinating when that happens,
I do too, man. But that's the thing too, because I agree with you, man. And that's the reason why I don't really touch the conspiracies as much as I used to. at all either. I mean, if my guest wants to chat about them, I will. Of course, that's where we all got our starting point. A lot of us did. We started looking into the conspiracies, and but I've said this on the show a few times. I'm going to say it one more time, just because it bears repetition. The conspiracies are true, but that's not the point here.
Yeah.
The all of the rabbit holes, all of the conspiracies, all they're doing is pointing you to the fact that there is a underlying spiritual nature to this reality that must be acknowledged. Like, I mean, why would every single conspiracy and rabbit hole without fail have esoteric and occult ties, or have esoteric and occult origins? Like, why? Like, and like, yeah, maybe you can chalk it up to them being crazy, if it was just a couple of things. But dude, it is like every single freaking conspiracy down the whole list of things has an esoteric and occult tie to it. So like that's why I was like, you know what, like I talked about the conspiracies a little bit in the beginning when I started the show still, but even at that point, I was like, to me, the geopolitical climate and the conspiracies, and I've used this analogy on the show before. I promise this will be the last time, everybody. I call it the very thin layer of icing on this massive cake.
Yeah.
And so like, and people like you and I, we're like cutting a piece of the cake. We're like, dude, we gotta get what's in the cake. We know the good stuff's in there. And then you have a lot of our collective just sitting there looking at the icing and maybe like tasting the icing a little bit, but they're not going into the cake. And I'm like looking at them. Yeah. So
they're comparing the red icing and the blue icing and getting mad about one not being like the other, even though it probably has the same ingredients.
Exactly. And so like that's kind of where I'm at right now. And that's why like, I'm like, I would rather talk about the spiritual goodness. I would rather talk about, the evolution, actually starting new earth, solutions based on that. And putting the foot forward in that way, man, because not everybody's doing it, because everybody's just talking about the problems still. Like, dude, I've been in this community now since 2008. It's been a long time. And like, dude, we are well aware of what the problems are at this point. Okay. We all know what they are. We don't need to keep talking into them. We don't need to keep refreshing them and acting like it's a new problem. It's the same problem that's exists for the past 50, 60 years. Okay. So it's like, all right, it's time to stop talking and it's time to start doing. That's just my thoughts on it. But nonetheless, man, I like where this started. Let's kind of dive into you a little bit. Let's because this is your first time on the show. Let's talk about your story. Let's talk about that, your spiritual awakening a little bit. Now, of course, you can abbreviate it. Of course, I know there could have been many moments that led you to where you are, but let's talk about the big, what I would call burning bush moment that kind of opened up your third eye into seeing that there was more to this existence than you thought was ever possible.
Mm-hmm. So generally speaking, I always have a hard time answering that question because, at least speaking for myself, there hasn't been one, there's been several. So I'm going to take you through the several key moments.
Awesome.
But of course, if you want to refer to the burning bush moment, I will start at the beginning of this journey in 2013. So back around then, I used to work late into the evening, and I had a very laborious, high stressful job. And by the time, and I had like a 45-minute commute on top of that. So like I got home pretty late. And when I got home, the family, the pets, they were all asleep, but I couldn't calm down. I needed, and I had quit using cannabis at that point in time, a couple of years prior. So I was like, what am I going to do? So I go into our spare bedroom, I go onto YouTube, and I just start finding certain videos and meditations to help me relax. And it became like almost a nightly routine when I got home. And we'll probably get into this deeper later, but I'll mention it right now, is that I do think spirit finds a way to hack our algorithms and what we see online for the positive and the negative. And in my feed on YouTube, this one night I came home, I saw something called Reiki. And I was like, oh, this looks interesting. And it was like a demo of this energy healing. And I'm like, I like this. I don't know why, but like, I'm really drawn to this. And things got to the point where I was like, eventually I need to find a practitioner in my town, because I was just in a state where I was really open, and I'm like, I got to see if this works or not. So late September of 2013, I book a session at a clinic in my city. And even I remember clear as day, I go to the parking lot, I'm sitting in my car, turn off the engine, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, what is this? Like I gotta be crazy just to be here. You know what I mean? But I'm like, I'm here. Let's go through with it. It's too late to cancel. Anyway, I go through my first Reiki session as a client, and it transforms the foundation of my existence, um, in a way I was not expecting. All this heavy guilt, anger, shame, whatever you want to call it, it was all gone. And the practitioner told me after the session was over, well, the biggest area you need to work on is your throat chakra, because you have unspoken words. And at that point in time, 100% true. One of the byproducts of doing the Reiki was I was clenching my jaw very tightly at the time, and it went away. And I just felt lighter. I felt reborn, and I felt like I could laugh at most things that were keeping me down. So that was where it all started. And from there, started having psychic premonitions in my dreams, to the point where they were so vivid it was starting to scare me. And then from there, I started to read books. And then in summer of about 2015, which was a very chaotic point in my life, I found podcasts on my phone, because I worked with a guy who used to do a lot of solo road trips. And he was like, oh yeah, this is how you download them on your phone, and you don't eat up your data. And I just looked through it, and I'm like, there was literally something for everybody here. Time to explore. I was doing a lot of driving then. So I started finding spiritual shows and stuff from there. I also got introduced to the works of like Wayne Dyer and all people within those things. And then a year or two later, a lot of major changes in my life. I had quit the job I was at. I went back to school. I now was looking after my daughter, because I gained prime custody of her, like just huge seismic shifts in my life. And I decided I wanted to start exploring aliens and UFOs again, from something I was interested in as a kid. So I started going to my library and binge watching Ancient Aliens DVDs, because they have a lot of them there. At that point, I was like, damn, this is the coolest thing ever. Now I probably don't care to watch it. But back then I was like, oh yeah, this is where the real stuff's at, you know?
No doubt.
And that eventually would lead me to the works and videos of David Icke before he got nuked by YouTube. So this is when you could still find a lot of his stuff on YouTube. Not so much now, but back then you could. And then that led me to some conspiracy pods. And it's so ironic, because I talked about this earlier this evening at my drum circle. March of 2019, I discovered shamanic healing. And short version of that story, I was going to meet a friend of mine for dinner in a city about an hour away from me. I had extra time to kill. I went to a big box retail bookstore, and I'm looking around, and I see this beautifully designed book, and it's called The Lost Art, of Heart Navigation by Jeff Nixa. I don't always get the title 100% right, but that's pretty close. And he was a former, I can't remember if he was a lawyer or if he was a legal clerk. He was in the legal profession. He became a hospice chaplain, and then became an urban shaman. And then this book is all about his story and what it does. And I just fell in love with it right away. I was at a bit of a valley in my life at that point, and I was like, this is awesome. And then at the end of the book, he goes, go online and see if you can find a practitioner near you. And I'm like, that's a great idea. Why have I not thought of this? And I found someone, and during lockdowns, she actually closed up her practice. And she was a very nice lady. She meant well, but I think she was into this as an extra income stream. And I think with the aspect of working with clients was in way over her head. So she stopped. But through that, I found someone at the end of 2020 who would become my teacher, my mentor. And this is where I would take all the courses. I would take the Reiki from there, have several life-changing experiences, meet amazing friends. And then also, I have to backtrack a little bit. March of 2020 is when I started the show. And my show was going to air on March 20th, the first day of spring. And that was 1 week after we all got locked down. And I literally almost folded up and said, I'm not doing this, but something pushed me forward. And I postponed it 1 week. I had 2 solo episodes in the can. So I debuted on March 27th. And it's been history ever since. And the last major point that I'll bring up right now is that one of my amazing guests, Jennifer Schluter, who's now Dr. Jennifer Schluter with her PhD, I found her in a mutual guest connection group on Facebook, and she was doing something called spiritual hypnosis. And she came on my show to talk about it. A couple of years later, she started an online course, and I took all the training, and now I'm practicing that part-time as well. So as you can see, Stephen, one thing led to another, to another, to another, and all had this domino effect. And it resonates with what you said earlier, that there's a spiritual foundation underneath everything, right?
Thanks, man. Dude, I gotta say that's an amazing story. And
thank you.
I say this all the time, and the reason why I like to hear everybody's story and have them on the show and have them tell it is because I hear a lot of my story and everybody else's story, and it's an amazing thing. I truly cherish it, man, because it is. It's this whole, I actually saw a post from a friend. He's been on the show, Leptokinetic. He said the spiritual evolution is what was it? He said 90% pain, 10% bliss.
Yeah, it's pretty true.
I was like, yeah. I'm like, it's terrifyingly beautiful is probably the best way I would put it, man. A couple of things I want to touch on when you were talking about the throat chakra. It's actually very common. A lot of people do have a blocked throat chakra, and it happens to a lot of people in our community too. And really what that comes from is it comes from the times in life where we have felt stifled in our truth, if we've, or we felt stifled in our authenticity. And that's usually where that comes to be. I'm going to give everybody a little trick right now to help with your throat chakra. Shoulder shrugs, just regular for about 2 minutes in a quick pace fashion with a breath of fire. And what this actually does is it works the meridians through here that actually connect with the throat chakra, because actually our shoulders are where we hold a lot of the somatic tension in our body from all of the trauma and all of the negative experiences that we've had, especially when it comes to ones that have like stifled our truth and our authenticity. So that's the throat chakra. The throat chakra is a great thing. Also too, the psychic premonitions, man, I feel you. I've had some really freaking like almost terrifyingly true ones in my evolution as well, and almost to the point where I actually had to get a past life regression due to some of these dreams I was having. Definitely opened up a whole new door for me. And I want to say congrats on your daughter. That's amazing. And I think why that happened is because you stepped into alignment, my friend. You definitely did. You finally stepped into that alignment, and the divine reciprocated, man. So that's really cool. What were you going to say? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, actually, there's one thing I want to add to that is that without getting too personal about it, when that was going on, I don't remember her name, but there was this like spiritual YouTuber I was following, and she had some videos at that time that were like leaving me in tears, and stuff I needed to hear in the moment, trying to navigate these stormy waters. And on a whim, sent her an email, and she actually wrote back to me. And
nice. Oh yeah.
And gave me like the sweetest email going through this difficult time. And I was just blown away. But another thing that happened at that point in time, and I honestly believe this was a major reason why things happen the way that they did is that people throughout my whole life who learned about what I was going through, like either reached out to me or reached out to someone in my family. Like, I'm not kidding when I'm like, the supply teacher I had in like the first grade who happened to like know my mother was reaching out, wishing me luck. Like, I had so much positive energy being sent my way that I think it turned the table on a lot of things. And I hope I'm not sounding too fluffy with that or anything, but I think it played a major role.
Well, dude, absolutely. I would agree with you. I think it did play a major role, and that's one of the biggest things too. Is like I talk about, and I think I chatted with you on your show about this. Is that the divine will like reach out to us in that way sometime through like
Yeah.
people we know, our loved ones, and to offer that extend that support and that love. So yeah, dude, I'm gonna say you stepped into alignment and the divine reciprocated for sure. Also, Ancient Aliens and David Icke. Of course, we all got our start from Ancient Aliens and David Icke, man.
Yeah.
And it's evolved for a lot of us since then too, though.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. But I still remember, man, that was actually the first experience that I think I had with an off-world or interdimensional entity. It was actually 2 months after I started listening to David Icke, and I won't go into the story in grave detail. I'll give it a TLDR, and then we'll move on. But as a lot of you know here, I'm an electrician. I still am, and this was during my apprenticeship when I was working in Washington D.C. So the thing about this is in DC, we would have to start work at like 5 a.m. and we would get off at 1 p.m. So it was super cool, but we had to start early. And so I was working at this data center and they had a building engineer there. And this building engineer, he was a government data center. Weirdest looking human being I have ever seen in my whole life. And I'm not saying that in like a derogatory way. Like I've never seen a human look like this to this day. He had white skin, but African American features. He was not albino. He had white skin, but African American features. And he had yellow hair and yellow eyes. I have still not to this day ever seen a human being look like that. So he was the engineer. He would get me into like certain buildings, or certain areas of the building that I needed to get into. I needed to get access, and I was on somewhat of an okay rapport with him, don't get me wrong. So there was one day, him and I were walking to this specific room I had to get into. And like I said, this was about 2 months after I started listening to David Icke. And we were talking, and he was about like, I want to say maybe 2.5, 3 feet from my face as we were talking. And he was talking to me, and Phil, I kid you not, his eyes blinked sideways. And I remember I'm sitting there looking at him and he's still talking to me after this happened. And I'm thinking to myself, does he know I just saw that? He has to know I just saw that. But I'm going to act like I didn't see it because how am I going to prove that? Like, you know what I mean? So like, I kind of was like, okay, cool, man. I got to go. Thanks for letting me in. Bye-bye. Right. And so the next day I come into work, man, and this is the weirdest shit about it all. The next day I come into work, there's another building engineer there. This guy's gone after that. And freaking, I remember I walked in and I'm like, what happened to such and such? And they're like, the dude looked at me, I kid you not, Phil, with a serious face, looked at me and goes, who's such and such? And I remember at that point in time, I was like, because like I said, it'd been 2 months after I started listening to David Icke. This is back in 2013. And I remember I was like, holy crap, dude. I talked to a shapeshifter or a reptilian or something like that. There's some weird shit going on right now, but that's what happened.
Yo, that is an epic story. And first of all, I think it's so funny you happened in DC, like Freemason capital of North America, obviously of all places. But this is interesting because I kind of wanted to get into this with you later, but I think it's good to bring up now that we're at this junction. So, and I got to give a quick shout out to Don Rogers in the comments because he's talked about this with me on my show and he'll appreciate where I'm going with this. So in terms of where the collective consciousness is going in this supposed split that might be going on. So I've been shown, I'm not going to divulge specifics because some of this energetically speaking, I was told to keep quiet, and I'm still going to do so until the right time. But if we haven't already guessed, the next 2 years are going to get hella nuts for a lot of reasons. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And where I'm going with all this is that, Stephen, have you seen the John Carpenter film They Live?
Yes, I have.
Roddy
One of
Piper,
my
you have.
favorites.
Good man. And the reason I brought up Don's name is because he's into it. Him and his partner Spinja are way into it. And when I had my 5-year anniversary show back in March, and remind me of that, I got a crazy story about that episode actually that we have to
Absolutely.
talk about. But anyway, so I had a panel on of different people, and I asked them all the same questions to see what kind of responses we would get, because I tried doing this massive like group chat, but nobody's schedule was aligning. So I'm like, I'm going to record these individually and air them side by side. And it turned out to be really cool. But anyway, the first interviewees were Don and Spinja, and then everybody else fell suit. All the other guests I had on, Stephen, had no idea like what this movie was or that it even existed. And we're all walking the same path together. Yeah, your face says it all. I was like, you got to be kidding me, right?
What?
So
Okay.
anyway, all that aside, the reason I bring all this up is I think the veil's going to thin out and things are going to come to the surface where we're going to be living in a live action version of They Live eventually. And the disguises, like your friend at the government building there, they're just going to kind of fall off. And the people who are fast asleep, who don't open their minds to these things, and who just don't have a clue what's going on, they're going to freak out and they're
Oh,
going
yeah.
to be terrified. And people like in our community are going to be like, oh, okay, we get this. And we might be trying to like console and comfort the ones who can't handle what's going on. So like,
Yes.
it just feels like, and anyway, I've talked with other guests on my show about this too, that a lot of the volcanic activity on Earth this year and the earthquakes, it's a reflection of what's going on in other galaxies and galactic battles. And I think it's also very metaphorical for what is going on, like what's going to be going on with the collective. Things are going to be bubbling to the surface, and a lot of people are going to be shocked by what they see. Earthquakes are going to break open structures that may have some hidden things in them, you know what I mean? Or may open us up to the tunnel systems that we all know exist, but people don't want to say exist. Like, I just feel this whole conglomerate of secrecy that we're kind of under with an iron fist is going to slowly corrode. And that's one of the ways that it's going to do so, is that these beings in their weird human disguises, like the disguises are going to fall, or the collective frequency is going to get higher, that more people are going to see them. Like they're going to put on Roddy Piper's glasses, but without putting glasses on. And it's just, it's going to be a show. That's all I'll say.
No, I'm going to be in a complete agreement with you, and I do see that happening. And I think that is, because everybody talks about the disclosure event, in our community, and I think that is ultimately going to be the disclosure event. And also, too, this is one thing I'm going to say, and I've said that I haven't said this on the show in a while, but you're about to resonate with what I'm about to say. The human is the ET/angel, and the ET/angel is the human. If you want to come down here and you want to directly participate in what's going down here, you have to hop in a human suit, or you have to get a human emanation of some kind in order to come down here and directly participate. If you don't want to do that, you can indirectly participate from the sidelines. It's not like the days of antiquity, where things could come and go as they pleased. Whether it be interdimensionals or extraterrestrials, I think when the density, so my whole theory is this, the Younger Dryas incident, the Atlantis incident, was the official moment of Earth setting into the third density. And when Earth settled into the third density at that point, and this is why I think the giants turned on us too. And this is why I think the the gods also, became kind of chaotic and erratic in their behavior too, because you're looking at these beings that had multi-dimensional capabilities, and now they're stuck here in this physical format. And I think that's why, because you look, the giants used to protect us before the flood. You even look at some of the tales from consensual history on how Gilgamesh actually would build walls around his city. And Gilgamesh was a Sumerian king. He was reported to be 12 feet tall. He was a giant. And he was actually protecting the humans from the flood. But then the flood occurred, and then the giants turned on us. And the reason why I think that happened, and this, of course, this is just me spitballing, is because the giants were now stuck here, and they wanted to take it out on the divine's prize creations, because we were apparently the ones that caused them to get stuck here due to our actions and our behaviors. And that's why the giants went from protecting us to slaughtering us and eating us. And I think that's my opinion. Don't get me wrong, I can't prove it, but the way I've kind of explored a lot of this stuff throughout the years, that's what that leads me to believe. And I do think you're right, man. I do think that what's about to happen, and I call it the removal of the forgetting. So people like
amnesia,
people like us who are on our spiritual evolution, we're going to get a pretty big layer of that amnesia pulled away. And what's going to happen is it's going to happen on a subconscious level to the general collective. Like you were saying, they might not be awake yet.
Yeah.
But because we're very strong and we're very powerful in who we are, when it happens to us, it's going to have a ripple effect throughout the collective consciousness. And we're going to have to console a lot of people. It's going to be the equivalent, man, of dealing with a population of toddlers throwing a temper tantrum is what it's going to be. And it is. And so but this is what we're going to say. We're going to say this is the way it's always been.
I have something I'd like to add to that.
Yes. God, I want to hear it. Yeah.
This is a very recent development in my journey, like talking over this past summer. I won't get into the core specifics because that's a whole other thing we probably don't have time for. But I was consoling one of my non-physical guides in the shamanic upper realm. And I was in a mood where I was kind of forlorn and frustrated and felt like I was repeating a lot of similar patterns. And my guide looks at me and he says, "Well, that's because you're a toddler." And I'm like, "What?" Like, how does this make any sense? He says, "No, you're a grown man. You're age 43 and all this. And but this next phase of your soul, you're in the toddler phase."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh my goodness, I get it." Because, and speaking from the point of view of a parent, a toddler, they go through such rapid growth in their mind and in their body and they have to be taught boundaries, they have to hear the word no. And that's so difficult for them. And I think they go through so much rapid change so fast that when they don't get what they want, they get frustrated. And that's why they cause trouble and throw tantrums and all that stuff. And I think on a soul level, or this next phase of my life, this is where I'm at, where I haven't quite fully grown, but I know I'm growing and there's not much I can do about it. And I want to control everything and all that.
Absolutely. I mean, what it is, man, too, is it's like you're excited about it. Like you're open to where this is going to lead you. That's why I even said at the beginning of the show that we always have to stay open and we always have to stay receptive, because the truth that we know today might not be the truth we know tomorrow.
100%.
And dude, I've talked about how throughout my 18 years on my spiritual evolution at this point, dude, I've been back to the spiritual drawing board more times than I can count.
Right.
Because I would formulate some kind of belief and I'd get stuck on a narrative and the divine would be like, I was like, haha, see, that shit was wrong, right? And I'm like, oh yeah. So then I'd go back to the spiritual drawing board. And then this happened in succession many times. And like, dude, I even just had to go back to the spiritual drawing board recently, man. And like, just kind of, because I see this habit in our community a lot. A lot of people get attached to a narrative. They get attached to a belief, and then something comes along and it crushes that belief, and they become fragmented and they almost go into a psychosis. And I'm like, the way you can stop that is to stop putting all of your eggs in one basket. You know what I mean? Start keeping yourself open to the fact that you could be wrong tomorrow. And if you do that, then when you do actually get like a new remembrance or a new realization, from your spiritual evolution, then you can integrate it at a better level, because you're like, okay, like I see what's being presented to me, and I'm open to this, and now I can start integrating it into my actual experience, as opposed to it just blowing the lid off of me and me ending up in a straitjacket in my basement for 3 weeks. Like, you know what I mean? Because that's what happens to a lot of these people. So, but no, I agree with you, man. I do think that is going to happen. I'm glad you brought up They Live, because that is the movie that wasn't even predictive programming to me. That was a fucking documentary.
Yeah, for sure.
So awesome, man. Well, so I kind of want to dive into this with you. We talked about this. So I don't go down many rabbit holes anymore, but there's a few. I still, like I said, I will still always have a portion of my butt cheek stuck in the Atlantis rabbit hole. I do think that is a very real thing. But also too, so this new thing, so there's been some new discoveries in physics, actually, and I'm going to bring up a couple of articles. We're not going to get too deep into them, but guys, they are in the description if you want to read up on them, and they're going to kind of go into kind of a basis of what we're talking about. So we have retro causality. Can the present and the future actually affect instances in the past? So this is very interesting because, even though I'm not a physicist, I have done a great amount of research into physics. And even though I'm not a physicist, I understand it probably at a better level than a lot of people. So the reason why this is very interesting to me, dude, because, we talk about predictive programming, right? And, we see this even for our most recent event, like you were talking about, like, what was it? The movie Snake Eyes back in 1998 had a guy named Charlie Kirkland who was shot in the neck on the 10th of September. Right. And and we've seen these instances. I mean, The Simpsons was notorious for it. I mean, even I'm not even gonna lie, South Park has even had some interesting instances of it. We've seen it in all kinds of movies, you know. But there's been a new theory that's been starting to kind of come out, that is this part of the parasite class and them orchestrating events, or could we have something a little bit more interesting going on? I'm not going to lie, I do think the parasite class does indeed set what I would call an energetic foundation for these events, by keeping people in a state of mesmerized terror, because we know that fear is a powerful manifester just as much as love can be. But this is very interesting, man. And then the other kind of article I want to pop up that's kind of going to like lend to the conversation real quick. Again, these are both available in the description for the Rumble and the YouTube video. So this is now a new theory proposes that time has 3 dimensions. So yes, there is a theory now that time, instead of being a singular dimension in and of itself, actually has 3 dimensions. So now they don't know exactly what these 3 dimensions are. But what I am going to say is I'm going to spitball and I'm going to throw my own twist on this and say it's very possible they could be past, present, and future time. This could be the 3 dimensions of time. So, I've gone into this a little bit too with the yuga cycles and the cyclical nature of that. But first, Phil, I want to get your thoughts as somebody who has studied a lot of this as much as I have. Do you think retro causality could be a thing for some of these predictive programming instances?
Absolutely. And I'm not even going to say could be. I'm going to say it is. I'm going to go bold and go out on a limb here. Oh man, where to start with this? So I think where I'll go first is that I'll talk about my own experience of discovering retrocausality and how it's played a role in my own life. So a couple of times on the show, I've had a gentleman named Jim Harold. Jim is known as the paranormal podfather, and he literally started a podcast when hardly anybody knew where it was. Like, I'm going like back in like 2003 or whatever. And he's basically running his own mini empire, and he's branched off far from the paranormal and all that. And I got in touch with his people, and we've had a couple of good interviews and appearances together. I want to circle to one. He was on my 4th of July weekend show in 2024, and he had a new book come out, his Campfire Tales Volume 9 or whatever the number was. And retrocausality got brought up in this one of the stories that his listeners shared in this book. And I'm like, I got to ask him about this. So here's kind of what he told me, and then I'll apply it to myself, and then we'll go on a bigger scale than that. So Jim worked in radio, and you're thinking, oh, okay, if he became a podcaster full time, he must have been a radio announcer. Not quite. He worked in sales. He was a sales rep at a radio station in his hometown of Cleveland, Ohio. However, he said he felt this strong, compelling urge to learn how every aspect of the radio station worked. And when you start a podcast, what do? You're basically a one-person show for an entire radio station, like everything that's in departments in a radio. And I worked in radio part-time for a few years. You're doing it all yourself, pretty much, with a podcast. And Jim was like, I don't know why, but I wanted to learn. And he transferred all of those skills to become the prominent podcaster in this field. Now,
it's amazing.
I go more in depth with this. This got brought up on my last appearance on Forbidden Knowledge News, which was in December of last year. I'll only go into the short version here, but I got connected with this spiritual community in late summer of 2021, and they had a space that did cold plunges, and that introduced me to the world of Wim Hof. And even though I've been on a break on it now from a while, it did a lot of positive things for me. But I just felt this urge, even though the first couple of times I tried it, it did not go very well. I decided to keep going, and it would eventually lead me down a crazy networking rabbit hole, which eventually led me to shamanic breath work and sound healings. Some of the practitioners and facilitators I've had on the show, and dare I say I call them friends now, all those experiences have been game changers for me. And this is where I inadvertently learned how to jump timelines myself. Okay. We'll circle back to that later. But because I decided in late summer of 2021 to try cold exposure and Wim Hof, even though I was like terrified of it, I'm still feeling the benefits of that decision here in the fall of 2025. So, yes. And with my story and Jim's story, the thesis is an energetic form from your future self, which is currently existing, giving you little breadcrumbs and pings to steer you into a certain direction so you reach your highest good. That's my summary of retrocausality.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what I call it too? So this is something I've even noticed, and I call it that your higher self is leaving you these symbolic clues.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Throughout, like it's even I even remember things. I mean, even in my experiences, I've been able to bust open some earlier memories of mine. And some of these clues were even happening in my childhood. When it came to leading us to where they are. And these symbolic clues are almost like what I would call these archetypal doorways that kind of open up these channels within our consciousness stream that almost push us in this direction of the spiritual evolution. So we have this remembrance. Go ahead. I know you want to say something.
I have something to share that correlates with directly what you just said, and I'm so excited because I'm sharing it publicly for the first time. Okay.
Nice.
There's a gentleman one town over from me who holds somatic breathwork sessions for men. And I've gone to a couple of sessions at his place, and I want to get into this a little bit later with you, but I'll tie into it briefly now, is that I've recently started taking Qigong. And how I got connected with that I could do a whole separate show on that. And in fact, I'm doing a show on it on Unexplained Incorporated later in the year. So that's why I won't get into that too much now. But when I was a kid, instantly drawn to the original Star Wars trilogy. Had the
me
toys,
too, dude. Totally.
had the movies. And me and my brother, we grew up on this street that was mostly girls. And what connected us? It was those movies. So like played a very big part. And it's something I would, eventually share with my daughter and all that. But anyway, I got this download during the somatic breath session that I was here to help people use the force. And I had flashbacks to some of those childhood memories. And then when you said archetypal doorway, I'm like, that's what that was.
Mm-hmm.
The Jedi, the force. That hit me at a young age as a child to get me to what I'm about to jump into now. So I totally hear what you're saying there.
No, I want to say, dude, absolutely. And it is, because that's, and here's the thing I'm going to say too. Speaking of that, I don't know if I had a chance to bring this up with you on our show. We do have latent abilities as humans, and they're called the cities. And I am a Siddha too. That's my path, one of my paths that I'm currently on. But the thing about the cities is people actually, so people call them supernatural abilities, right? But if you actually look at how the yogic traditions speak about this, and actually even go into a lot of the Tibetan Buddhist traditions, because Guru Rinpoche, the second Buddha, he was a very powerful Siddha. Actually, he left a giant footprint in stone outside. I don't know if you've ever seen that footprint that was like basically embedded in the stone outside of that Chinese temple. That was from Guru Rinpoche, the second Buddha. But the cities are actually natural innate abilities that we all have, but we have lost touch with them. We have forgotten them.
Oh yeah.
And so exactly, man. And I look at a lot of Star Wars was definitely big with me. I was into some other shows at that time too that showed me a lot of these archetypal doorways too. Like I was into a lot of like martial arts stuff, a lot of martial arts animes and things like that back then. And a lot of those kind of led me, and those were archetypal doorways too, putting me on the path of the cities and all of that too. So no, I completely agree, man. And that's why I joke that sometimes I feel like on the inside that some of this stuff was made specifically for me, even though in the grand scheme of things, we can say that it probably wasn't, but how a lot of this stuff, I mean, even what you were talking about, the original Star Wars trilogy, the Force, dude, and that's where, I mean, I even talk about love, because love is a power and a force, man.
Yeah.
When it is utilized in its fullest capacity, love's a power and a force, dude. It can manipulate space, time, and matter. So yes, I agree with you, dude. I do think that was for you a little bit, man. That was kind of like your higher self being like, look at this, Phil, this is where you're going to go.
So I don't know if you're familiar with Tyler Scott. He's been on the Forbidden Knowledge Network a few times. He's been on my show, and he's running these CE5 events. And anyway, I went to one of his events, and I got to meet him in person a couple of weeks ago because we were only like a couple hours apart. And I said this quote to him, and I wanted to pass it along in regards to this, as I asked him, do you ever feel like you're living in a movie, but you don't know who the director is? And he was like, oh yeah, absolutely. And I'm like, all right, we're on the same page then, because that's how it feels sometimes. And there have been times when I've been told, I got told this by a trusted psychic actually, that I jump timelines when I'm in these altered states, but sometimes I jump so far ahead that I don't know how far ahead I've gone. And then when I journal it and I'm like, oh, I can't wait for this to happen, and then it doesn't happen in Earth time, my ego gets very frustrated. And then it just goes to show that time is circular and not linear. And that 3D article you shared resonates with me a great deal. And I'm going to bring up one more quick thing on this before we get into the macro predictive programming, is that Yeah, this is a whole other topic for another show, I think, at some point. But I did a significant mushroom ceremony just after my 40th birthday in the
Very
summer of
cool.
2022. Short version of that. First half of the journey was shadows, second half was the light. And the first half, oh man, it was terrifying. I'll just say that. I'll leave it there for now. But the second half of it was so beautiful, and I got shown a vision that it was mind-blowing epiphany and all that, right? Here's the problem though. As early as this afternoon, literally like today, October the 8th, I had something happen. It was quite minor, but then it made me reframe what I saw in this vision. And I just went, if that connects to that, whoa. Number one, I've had this wrong. Number two, it was a truth and I just didn't recognize it for what it was. So yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm still kind of reeling from that. I'll get into that sometime down the road, but I bring all this up because yeah, like time isn't just A to B. There's so much more going on there.
Oh, absolutely, dude. And you called it a movie, but you don't know who their director is. I've kind of come up with my own I call this an interdimensional reality TV show.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I'm calling it at this point, because it to me, that's what it feels like. And people like you and I were the audience of this interdimensional, or we're in it and we're a part of it, but we're like, I'm trying to think of the name of what you would call it. Like, we're like the meta characters of the interdimensional reality TV show, and then you have the actual characters, which are like the human collective and all of that. But no, that's what I've honestly called it, because I feel the same way as you. It's like some kind of strange movie or TV show that you don't know the director in, and kind of talking about your psychedelic experience. And this is what I'm going to say about psychedelics. So I believe psychedelics are a form of technology, man.
Mm-hmm.
And excuse me, this is where I'm going to lead with this, because let's say consciousness is the prima materia of this existence, which I know both you and I resonate on, that this is a very consciousness-based existence. So anything that would alter your consciousness would essentially be a form of technology. And and that's why, and the experiences I've had on entheogens, man, have been realer than this, what we're doing right now. You know what I mean? They have been so real, almost too real, in a lot of ways, than this everyday waking world. And so, and also too, what's even crazier is there's new scientific information that has revealed itself, that DMT works with serotonin to modulate how you perceive your physical reality. And if you look at all of these psychedelic compounds, even though we have tryptamines, we have lysergamides, we have phenylethylamines, things like that, they all have a similar molecular backbone that's related to DMT, and it fits into the receptor that DMT does. So that begs the question. So if we know that DMT works with serotonin to modulate how we perceive our physical reality, if we increase those DMT levels beyond baseline, do we perceive more of reality? And that is the question here. And that would seem like it. I mean, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that too.
Well, I would have to agree with that. And Rebecca Llewellyn, the shamanic breathwork practitioner who's become a really good friend of the show, she essentially says in her intro that when you're in the altered state with the shamanic breathing, he's like, your brain is releasing DMT into your system. And you don't necessarily need plant medicine or DMT itself to have those experiences, 100%. Right? So yeah, I totally resonate with what you said there.
No, 100%, man. And what's even interesting too about this, because I cultivate my EDMT, through Kundalini Yoga. You get those EDMT releases there. But what's interesting too is, so when you look at, because what you do in Kundalini Yoga is you're utilizing the chakra locks to move your cerebral spinal fluid up your spinal column into the hypothalamus cavity of your brain. And what's in that cerebral spinal fluid? You have endogenous DMT, and then you have endogenous cannabinoids also. So you have anandamines that also exist in your cerebral spinal fluid, and those two work synergistically when they enter your hypothalamus cavity to bring forth that altered state of consciousness. And that's why too, because I always remember back in the day, like when I first started taking psychedelics, I would smoke a little bit of cannabis on top of it, and it would always increase the trip. It would be like magnified every time I would smoke cannabis on top of a psychedelic. But then when I came to find that out later, that in the cerebral spinal fluid, you have, which I'm sure you do release in that somatic breath work too. That's kind of where that kind of works it up. You have endogenous DMT and you have endogenous cannabinoids. And I was like, oh my God, that is not a freaking coincidence. But you are absolutely right, man. You do not need the plant medicines. But then also too, we have this technology built in us. We have this technology hardwired into our genetic structure, our physical structure. And that's something we can't overlook, man. So absolutely.
Yeah. And from there, I think I'll bring up, because I alluded to it earlier, that I'm currently training to get level 1 certification for Qigong. And
Nice.
I'm putting a bit of a rush on it because I have an area where I can start teaching level 1 in the new year. And when I get to levels 2 and 3, I don't have to rush as much and I have to put in a lot more hours. It's about getting that level 1 is so important. This is almost a month now I've been doing this, and I want to describe some of the changes I've been going through, because if you want to talk about the technology within us and within you, when you unlock the energy and you unlock the chi, some really profound things happen. So my first class was on the 15th of September. The morning after, I feel like I had the purge to end all purges. It was really intense, and I've had a few of them this year, because this year has been about clearing and shedding, and I know it's the year of the snake and Chinese astrology and all that stuff, and like it's about getting rid of what no longer serves me. But it was like everything I was trying to get rid of. And yes, thank you for the comment. Jay Skyrunner's on my radar. I'll be talking to him in the new year. It's all good there. Yeah. But anyway, it was like everything I was trying to release hit me all at once. And it was so painful to get through. And I knew something was going on, because unlike other purges, I like drained out my sinuses. Like I could not believe what was coming out of my nose, and like it wouldn't stop. And I was like, there's something going on. And I was like, I wonder if it's the Qigong. So then I looked into it a little bit, and it's like, yeah, I think it was like all this stagnant negative energy I needed to release came out all at once after I did my first class. And since then, I'm sleeping better.
Amazing.
My physical aches and pains, I don't have a lot to begin with, thankfully, but like I do work out as much as possible, and I do a lot of heavy lifting at work. So it flares up. It's mostly gone down. Like just the other night, I went and did my dumbbell regimen at the gym.
Nice.
After doing a Qigong class. And I was lifting a little heavier than normal, and I was like almost pain-free. And I was like, I could get used to this. So a lot of things people want to substitute with substances or pharmaceuticals or whatever. You don't need to. We have it within us. We just need the vessel to free it and move it around.
Oh, I completely agree, dude. So I still do Qigong. And like, I remember telling you this. So because I box, so I actually do it before I start doing my boxing training. I do the 8 brocades, and then I do the elements, the elemental Qigong sequences before I actually begin to start training for boxing. And you do, dude, because what you're doing is you're opening up the entire meridian system of your body. When you do this internal alchemy or this esoteric yoga known as Qigong, and you're opening up the entire meridian system. So when you do that, you're basically, it's like widening the lanes of your energetic highways in your body. Oh, yeah. And like, you have to think like, and I've actually been working with Don, because he started doing Kundalini yoga and Kundalini Kriyas. And I was explaining to him how the spine is like the energetic interstate of your whole body. It's that's like the I don't know what you guys call them on here, but like for out here in Colorado, that's like the I-25 of your body. It is literally going north to south. It is a major thoroughfare for all of your energy. And then when you do stuff like Qigong, you're opening up all of those energetic, side roads, and you're opening up all of those other energetic freeways that might branch off the main interstate. And what this does is it has a almost what I would call a whole being strengthening effect. Like it strengthens your whole being. And like you were saying, like you did Qigong, then you went to the gym and you started lifting, and you're like, wow, man, this like 50-pound dumbbell feels like way lighter than it used to. Like, you know what I mean? And all that. And yeah, dude, like that will happen. It will. And like, this is why we can't negate a lot of this internal alchemy, man, because I did a show, dude. The subtle body is something that I specialize in. Metaphysical anatomy is something that I specialize in. And I actually is interesting. So, and this is just for anybody who's listening to see that this is not metaphysical speculation. This is a real thing. On my show I did with the subtle body, man, I pulled up an NIH study where they did an autopsy on a human being, and they were actually showing the meridian points of the body and the meridian highways. And it was very interesting too, because you would see the areas in your muscle where there would be a thin layer. It was like where all of these meridian points and these chakra points were, there was like the muscle wasn't as thick there. It was thinner, and it had a layer that permeated down into the fascia and the nervous system of the body. And these were the meridian points. And I'm like sitting here looking at this study, man, and I'm like, holy crap, dude, they're actually proving it. But of course, in NIH fashion, at the end, despite the fact they just gave you a plethora of evidence is real, they say it is inconclusive if the meridian system exists in the human body. And I'm like sitting there, even on the show, I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me, dude. Like, you just literally showed physical anatomy that shows this stuff. And you're going to say that it's inconclusive, but it's not metaphysical speculation, dude. This stuff works in your story and Don's story and my story, all testimonies of this. And that's the reason too, they don't want it to come out, man, because I'll tell you what, dude. And that's why I went down the Kundalini road. I mean, I was working with Hanuman. He kind of pushed me towards it too, but I was also like, why is this so taboo? Why is everybody saying this is dangerous? Like, why? And of course, I'm Mr. Fuck around and find out when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I dove right in, and I'm like, this is why it's dangerous, because if everybody started doing Kundalini Kriyas or Qigong or internal alchemy, they had that thing in China where they banned Qigong. They weren't allowing you to do it. But if everybody started doing this, the physical healthcare system and the mental healthcare system, as we know it, would cease to be. It would be incinerated. Like, yes, it would no longer exist as we know it.
The disparity between Eastern medicine and Western medicine is unreal. And I could be wrong about this, Stephen, but aren't there a lot of bans and laws on certain Chinese herbs and all that stuff, and herbalists? And apparently, and I haven't messed around with herbs too much yet, but apparently I've heard that's where the really good stuff is. And of course, if that's true, Big Pharma would be terrified of it and would eradicate it as much as possible.
Dude, there are supplements out there, Phil, and I know because I've taken some of these supplements. They're natural and they work better than pharmaceuticals. And I've even said that to people. It's like, because the FDA comes and they fucking ban them. Once they find out that they work, and that's what we have, here in the States, the FDA and stuff. But like, once they find out that this thing works better than a supplement, they ban it. Or what they try to do is they try to take it off shelves and they try to patent it, or they try to patent the specific compounds in it. Because here in the US, it's illegal to patent nature. Like, that's why you can't patent the cannabis plant. That's why you can't patent psilocybin mushrooms or anything like that. But you can sure as hell pull the active compounds out of there. And, so that's what they do. They'll either ban the supplement outright, or they will, or what they will do is they will take it off the shelves and they'll try to find the active isolated compounds, and they'll try and turn it into a pharmaceutical medication that then you have to go and you need to get from them. But dude, herbs are more than just physical. There's energetic effects from herbs too. And that's where a lot of that Chinese medicine comes in, is the synergistic effects of these herbs when it comes to the body's energetic field and the energetic system.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing I'd like to add too is that you've probably this is a story you may not know, but you've probably heard that like up here in Canada, especially lately, our justice system is in like shambles.
Yeah, I've heard about it.
And
Yeah.
I'm not exaggerating, and like Don will likely back us up on this. Like there's literally pedos being released into the streets and reoffending, and people for much less serious crimes are getting like the book thrown at them. And you're just like, and the reason I bring this up is because within the last year or so, in Toronto and some of the surrounding cities, and I'm about an hour and a half west of Toronto,
Okay.
people have been, I don't know how they've been doing this, so I can't say what confines of rules or whatever they've been in, but mushroom dispensaries have been opening up like
Oh yeah.
overnight. Literally within hours of operation, the cops show up and shut it down. And we have like dangerous sex offenders out on bail walking the streets and committing crimes. And yeah, but someone selling mushrooms, probably with a legal business permit, the cops show up like that. You're like, hold on a minute, like something's not right about this.
Well, it's like, well, that's the thing, dude. Priorities. I even heard up there in Canada too. It's like, I actually, because I had Karen Holton on the show.
Yeah,
We did a pre-recorded episode. I'm going to air soon.
Nice.
But she was telling me how you can't even defend your home anymore up there. You can't like if somebody comes in and robs you, they're telling you leave the keys by the door, so they can take. And I'm like, to me, that's like so anti-human and against human rights altogether.
Well,
when we talk about that, dude, I'm like, dude, I don't care who you are. You come into my house, dude. You fucked around, you found out, and you're going to learn the consequences of fucking around and finding out.
Yeah. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I got to bring this up. I was on Karen's podcast with some fellow Canadians who like I've all had on my show since, Tyler Scott being one of them. And it was called Coping as Canadians. And one of the things that we got onto that topic. But one thing I brought up, and that a lot of people forget about my country, is that we're really not a sovereign nation. We still are under the umbrella of the crown. And depending on what researchers you follow, like the heart of darkness is in like the city of London and serves the crown and all that. And I'm not up for debating that today, but there's a lot to it.
I agree with you.
Countries like Canada, Australia, more so Australia, and I have a lot of friends down there that can testify to this, is that when these, whatever you want to call them, these cretins are wanting to do experiments socially, economically, medicinally, whatever you want to say, it's usually Australia and then it's Canada, because they know if they did it in your United States, like some of the stuff that's going on here now, people would not stand for it. So I just wanted to bring that up.
No, 100%. Yeah, we won't touch on it anymore. But no, there's like, well, the one thing I'll say to kind of end that off is there is a definite anti-human agenda at play here. It's anti-human. I mean, it screams like, yeah. But all right. So next topic. So I wanted to ask you this question because you asked me this question on your show.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear your take. So we talked about the prison planet when I was on your show, and I kind of gave you my take on it.
Yeah.
Now I kind of want to hear yours, because this is something that kind of comes up in our community a lot, and it actually kind of stonewalls and black pills people if they get stuck there. I actually had a good friend of mine. He's a fellow podcaster. I don't know if you guys if you've ever heard of Brandon Thomas, but he got stuck on it for a little, and he ended up getting himself out of it. Thankfully,
he's out of it. Nice.
Yeah, he's a great guy, like awesome dude. So I was really happy when he got out of it. But so let's hear your take on the prison planet. Do you think we live on a prison planet of some kind? And do you think that there is a way out of it? And I know you probably do.
Well, yeah, before I get to that, I want to say I heard some of Brandon's interviews when he was at the height of that, and I was like, oh, this is a little concerning. So I'm really glad to hear that he's moved on from it. So that's,
he has stuff. No, I'm proud of him, man. He's a great guy.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, no, that's good. So, Stephen, we're very close in alignment with this. So I'm going to sum it up like this. it's a prison if you allow it to be and if you perceive it to be. Now, that doesn't mean that things aren't going sideways and that people are trying to imprison our essence and our freedom, like we just talked about a few minutes ago. That's totally going on and is totally in play. But we all know this, but I'm going to reiterate it. Now, to thrive and survive in this world, we all have to chain ourselves to this matrix in one form or another. It's just an unfortunate reality. I know you've referred to yourself as an anarchist. I'm leading closer towards that, but I'm not quite there. You know what I mean? Because like that's a very strong and bold term. And to not be like a recluse completely off the grid, you have to have some appendages in this matrix system. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is right now. But I think we do our best to try not to get to become of it, if that makes any sense. And of course, I'm going to say it again, even though we all know this, it's the blending of our thoughts, intentions, and actions that create a reality. And actually, I'm glad we're here because this is something I wanted to bring up earlier when we were talking about energy and we didn't get a chance to. I want to give a shout out to another former guest on my show, Shannon Thompson. Shannon is local to me and she practices out of the same clinic I do. She's more full-time, whereas I'm like the part-timer trying to get what I can. She's well established. So Shannon is a counselor and a social worker and teaches kundalini yoga as well.
Nice. Oh, yeah.
But she's a very wonderful, down-to-earth lady, and she's got a real spiritual side to her. And one of the things she talked about on the show back in the summer was that she has connected with this device known as neurofeedback. Now, I'm not a shill. I'm not on their payroll. However, I've been meeting with Shannon for, I don't know, about 2 to 3 weeks now. And I've been hooking myself up to this machine. And the effect of it has been profound. One thing I constantly battle is negative self-talk, negative thoughts that, you know, and they all enter everybody, but some of them really like get in there, like kind of gnarly fashion. And a few sessions on this neurofeedback has completely like rewired my cosmology and I think the neuroplasticity of my brain. And everybody's journey is different. Everybody's solutions are different, but I really believe these devices like the one Shannon is using can help cure depression and a lot of forms of mental illness without like, you know, pharmacology and all that. So I wanted to throw that in there because there are ways, if you are feeling black-pilled or down or feel like we live in this, you know, prison we can't escape, go look into those avenues and try and readjust your thoughts a bit. And it's not like the negative stuff will go away, but it'll recalibrate it. Like your mind will feel so much more balanced. And this is the way I've been feeling between that and the Qigong and some other things going on. In terms of interdimensional realms and people having near-death experiences, there's a large theory that's been out there for some time that people who are told to run to the light, it's actually a trap, and it'll trap you into reincarnation. And maybe the prison aspect of this is reincarnation, and you won't break free until you learn your lessons, you do good deeds, and you figure this all out. That's a whole other discussion for another show, I think. But I do want to bring up something really quick. I had a guest on last month who was super fascinating. Her name is Kathy McDaniel. She's almost 80 years old. Like, she barely looks 65. And she had a near-death experience that did not go well at all. She believes she grew up Catholic, so this probably had something to do with it, but she believes that she spent a significant amount of time in hell when she was in a coma. And her story is truly terrifying. But what fascinated me so much about her when talking to her was I thought I was going to get the usual Catholic Christian perspective from her, which is fine. I welcome that on the show, and I welcome all perspectives, as long as it's not like super cringy hate stuff. You know what I mean? Like the real stuff. You know what I'm talking about? I'll talk to whoever, you know what I mean? but she had a much broader spiritual understanding of what she saw and how scorned she was by friends and family and members of her church when she shared that experience. Instead of, Christ-like love and compassion, their reaction was like, well, what did you do to get there?
Yeah.
And I heard that and I was just like, are you serious? Like, so I wonder if when she was in a coma, if some negative entity hijacked her experience
Yes.
interdimensionally or the afterlife. So that's why I bring it up, is that like the same parasites controlling this 3D realm likely are getting their hands into other realms too. And then we could talk about, if you want to get into some of the things with the super colliders and the CERN facilities and the facilities we probably don't even know about that are trying to open portals, and people are terrified that just a horde of demons will come flying out into our world if they keep playing with this. And so I think the prison is in the eye of the beholder, but I think, like you said earlier, you have to embody the humanness to do the work in order to get out of it. And one thing that I find very concerning, especially with the times we live in now, and you probably understand what I'm talking about here, is the people who don't want to embody the human experience. They want to lose themselves in psychedelics or breath work or the non-physical trance channeling, whatever it is, or they're like, oh, I want the aliens to come take me away.
Yeah.
The aliens are going to fix everything because I can't fix my own shit in my own life. And listen, I've had some of those thoughts. There are times where I've reached such excruciating points of overwhelm on the journey where I'm like, why do I have to keep doing this? But then once you release it, and then the embodiment of your physical life starts getting better, you gain higher perspective and you're like, oh yeah, it does get better. You know what I mean? So just generally speaking, I have a concern with people who use like the non-physical and the unexplained to not deal with what's going on in their own lives.
No, 100%, man. And I think we talked about that. Those are people who are imbibing too much in the Lucifer energy.
Oh
They're imbibing way too much in the Lucifer energy. But you said some really great things, man. And so one of the things I don't think I got a chance to talk with you about on the show when you asked me this question. So I think, and I'm going to bring something to the table. And a lot of people, I've said this before, and I get weird looks. But just I want everybody to have an open mind with what I'm about to say. I think we cast spells on ourselves a lot here, right?
Yeah,
and you look at the concept of a soul, right? A lot of us in this community, we believe in having a soul, but when you look at the concept of a soul or a spirit, a lot of times what that symbolically represents is a disembodied spirit. So if you view your consciousness as that when you pass from this body or you leave this plane, you're essentially setting yourself up in a lot of ways to almost in a way be powerless. So I know David Icke calls it, because he doesn't like this term either. David Icke calls it, you're a subjective focal point of the divine consciousness. Mm-hmm. I call it, we are immortal spiritual beings that are actually emanating a physical impression into this reality. And I mean, could the soul be something that we adopt here when we're on Earth? Possibly. But at least in my eyes, at this point in time, we are these immortal spiritual beings. Okay, we have come here for lifetimes. We have done this so many times. Like, you know what I mean? We've been here on Earth. We've probably been other places too. But that's one of the things too that I'm starting to see, at least in my own experiences, is that I'm an immortal spiritual being. This individual that you're talking to is an emanation of this 3D emanation of this immortal spiritual being that is sitting here having this podcast with you. And when you ultimately, in my eyes, you start to view it that way, and you kind of break, and this is why I talk about a lot, we need to start expanding upon the spiritualities of old. And like I said at the beginning of the show, like, yes, the spiritualities of old, they're great. They got us all to where we are today. But does that mean we should put all of our eggs in the basket of the spiritualities of the Piscean age? Does that mean we should do that? No. We're in now, at least in my eyes, no. Okay. Like we can take the good things from them and bring them with us. Like, but that's why I talk about that. We need to expand upon the spiritualities. Hey mom, my mom's in the chat. Nice to see you. Yeah, she's a fan of the show. It's great. It's great that she is. Yeah. But no, that's what I think personally, man. And like, that's why too, like you were talking about how when we were talking about the prison planet, that's why, as much as I love a lot of Gnosticism and I love a lot of Gnostic concepts, I can't get down on the fact that the physical realm is 100% completely evil and bad. I can't get down on that, because why would we be here then? Why would we choose to be here if it was it's a learning experience, like, so I want to get your thoughts on that too, because I just wanted to throw that in there.
I was in a meditation at some point earlier in the summer, and once again, I've said this a lot, but we could do a separate show on certain things I've been shown in these states about our world and our existence. And by no means am I saying they're the be all end all, but there's a lot of similarities with what a lot of other people have shared, and it will make a good chat one day, I guarantee you. But anyway, what I will share with you right now was that, so I took place in a meditation that was being facilitated by another guest I had on the show, who runs a crystal skull shop, and it's really cool. It's out on a farm, and she was facilitating a crystal skull star being meditation. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm down with that. So August 8th in the evening, that's where I went, on that Lion's Gate or whatever you want to call it. And it was very cool. It was a good time. It felt like it was a little bit too short for my liking, but the one takeaway from that was I was talking to something. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I was having an interesting dialogue with it. And I basically got told this, is that I may have asked why other interdimensional, intergalaxy beings have an interest in humans, in us. And they said something along the lines of that us human beings, we can alter our states in this density. And apparently the other beings, they love that, because apparently they can't do it. So we can ascend, and ascension is not a physical thing. It's not being beamed into a spaceship. It's about elevating your consciousness. We can ascend or descend, and we have the free will to do it, which I think, if you're into ETs, interdimensional, intergalaxy beings, I think a lot of them, especially the ones that are more dense in the lower vibrational scale, they can't do it. So they look at us and they're like, wow, they can choose their experience. So that's where, to me, that vision almost blew holes into the prison planet or being black-pilled or whatever. So
absolutely.
Yeah, like anyone who listened to that, take what resonates, leave what doesn't, because I don't know anything, remember?
Well, one thing I'm going to say too, and I completely agree, we can't. And so this is the other thing I've been entertaining lately, because I feel a lot of us, whether you want to call yourself a star seed, whether you want to call yourself an angel seed, right? A lot of us who are awakened, I do think that we are these emanations of these, what I would say, immortal spiritual beings. But when you look at what an emanation is, are we completely physical? Like that is something, of course, like, yes, we have an immortal spiritual being that we are, like, you know what I mean? But I'm talking about, are we really avatar? Because, you talk about what the human form and the human body is here. You have kind of a few definitions. You have avatars. You have, human suits, as I kind of called it earlier, but I don't think it's even a suit at all. I think it's an emanation of sorts, but is an emanation purely physical? And that's why when you look at a lot of us who consider ourselves star seeds, angel seeds, awaken the divine spark, are we even really truly physical ourselves? And then when you said like change states, like what you were talking about there, I've even had experiences where I've seen in the past, we humans, we had the capability to be energetic or physical if we decided to choose. So like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, I'm spitballing that there, but that's kind of like what you brought to mind when you were saying that.
Yeah.
And it is interesting too. And that's why I do think, because they are so interested, some of them decide to emanate themselves here.
Yeah.
And emanate themselves here in a three-dimensional form. And that's why I will always stick by saying the human is the ET angel and the ET angel is the human, dude. It is. I've experienced it myself. So that's what that brought to mind with me, man. And kind of because we're getting up closer to the 2-hour mark. Let's hit this topic real quick. Because we were talking about the collective consciousness earlier. And I think ultimately, one of the things we need to do to start reclaiming our collective consciousness would be this very simple thing. And I kind of want to get your thoughts on it because ultimately we've come to realize in our spiritual evolution that the collective consciousness not only manifests the collective reality, it manifests the events that take place in the collective reality itself.
Yeah.
So with that being said, one of the things I've talked about to reclaim our collective consciousness back is we need to start putting more no in quotations towards what's happening to us in the collective consciousness. And I do think this would be the way to reclaim it, and it would be the way to turn the tides. But here's the thing. Even a lot of people in our community, right, and even going into the general collective too, we have been conditioned to think that everything is hyper complex. When it comes to our health, the solutions to this anti-human agenda that we're currently facing here, all hyper complex, but in reality, it's quite simple. And all we need to start doing is we need to start putting the no into the collective consciousness. And what do I mean by the no? We no longer put energy or focus towards the problems. We put energy and focus towards the solutions.
Yeah.
We no longer support. Phil wants me to do 3. The other Phil, Cosmic Voice. Phil, I wish I could, man, but I got to get up and go to work tomorrow. I wish I wish I could, man. I do, but freaking, I got to get up and go to work tomorrow. But, choosing things that don't support the false matrix system. I mean, even when I had Karen on, this was even like a small little rebellion she did. She was telling me about the story. She was at the airport and she wouldn't go through the X-ray scanner. She said, I don't want to be irradiated. Yeah. So you can pat me down. And sometimes even saying no is going to be undergoing these minor inconveniences like that. Yeah. That's a minor inconvenience. That's 5-10 minutes of your day. But when you talk about inconveniencing somebody nowadays, they're like, oh my God. But it's like, but even undergoing these slightly minor inconveniences just to keep pushing the no into the collective consciousness, the content that you're intaking, what you're putting your dollar towards, your currency towards. At least here in the US, man, one of the most real votes that we have is what we put our dollar towards. Right? That's the real vote, because money talks, bullshit walks here. And like it does with a lot of other places too. But started putting your money towards the things you want to see come to fruition. That's another way we can say no. Instead of going to Walmart, maybe go hit the farmer's market. Or like I said, dude, my cheat sheet for really cheap, clean, good food, Asian grocery stores. Go to the Asian grocery store, get your veggies and your meats from there. Yeah. Don't support these big box matrix stores. Just keep saying no. So what are your thoughts, and what kind of are in your eyes are the ways to push this no into our collective consciousness?
Yeah. First off, this kind of circles back to being told that I was a toddler. And I think part of what that means is that I'm still figuring out how to make some of these choices myself. Okay. Because one of the strongest psychedelic messages I've had on my journeys was everybody is going at their own pace. And that's really hard to recognize. And it's really hard to be patient sometimes, especially with certain people, We all get tested, and we get tested for contrast, But where I'm going with all this is that if you're in that stage similar to where I'm at, I think the best solution you could find is community, with like-minded folks who have your back, and you can have these open and honest discussions with. It's like, oh, you shop here or you did this. Well, what can I do about it? Quite a few years ago, for one example, there's a very dear friend of mine whose mother had a cancer battle and thankfully survived. And they think a good portion of what caused it was the brands and types of household cleaning products they had in their home. And ever since then, now there's been a couple of exceptions to this, but I'm mostly buying these types of cleaning products that are plant-based and don't have all the harmful, nasty stuff in it. And that's just like one baby step I did. And there's still a lot more I need to do. But if I hadn't had dialogue with this friend, I don't know if that's a choice I would have consciously made. And who knows, it may be impacting my health right now for all I know. So that's one example. But like, good, loyal people, man, are hard to find these days. Like,
Oh,
don't we
100%.
know it? Don't we know it?
100%.
Like, find a community you can have these dialogues with, but ones that, you know, don't just pay mindless lip service. They don't ghost you after a petty disagreement. They don't talk shit behind your back while praising you to your face or giving you all this love and light stuff, and then their actions aren't matching their words. You want to find people that want to grow and celebrate with you, and they won't think that you're a total weirdo for asking these questions, because I'm in agreement in a big way with you in some of the interviews I've listened to you with you that we have to have change and stop talking. I think we need both, but you're right. Like there needs to be, I should say, more action than words, but I think a lot of people don't know where to start or they get overwhelmed. So my solutions, I guess, for what you were saying is to do the baby steps and find people that could guide you through it if you feel like you're not confident or you're overwhelmed to do it yourself. The other thing I wanted to mention too, and I've been working on this diligently here in 2025, and we've talked about it before, but is cycle through and make peace with all of your traumas, all of your hurts, and your negative patterns as well, because they aren't who you are and they don't define you. And I think that's where it all starts, because if you don't have this figured out, like you're not going to do a whole lick of good in the collective in any way, shape, or form. So start within, branch out to community, and snowball it from there. I think that's the best I got right now.
I dig it. No, I absolutely dig it. And I'm not saying we don't need talking to. We do.
Yeah.
It's definitely when people, that's all they do. That's when I get. Yeah. So one thing I want to say about your friend's mom. So synthetic fragrances are actually endocrine disruptors. So you got to think how cancers kind of form too. Cancers really form from, an endocrine response and also a genetic response too. So that could definitely have been the reason why. And also I really loved what you said about small steps equal big change. And it's not about cramming all of this in all at once. It's about making these small steps and changes each day. And then what happens is you begin to cultivate that change within you. You make that small step one day, and then maybe the next day you make 2 small steps. And then what that does is it causes what I call the energetic intention snowball. And it starts snowballing. And then all of these steps, all of a sudden, now what will happen is they'll start putting it'll start going faster. These steps and these changes will get bigger, and then you'll see the divine will start to reciprocate. Phil, I'll put my email in before the show ends, but and all of these, and that's what you get this energetic snowball effect. So that's what I was saying, just even making a small change, like instead of, how about this, and this is just saying, instead of turning on the TV, go outside and stick your feet in the grass. That's a very small change. You can, and most of us stream TV nowadays anyways, you can watch that later if you want. Now go outside and freaking go ahead and stick your feet in the grass, or go walk outside, or go somewhere in nature instead of watch TV. Recalibrate yourself. So that, Phil, I think that was well said. And I think what we're going to do is I don't want to close it off because I can still keep going, but we're going to close it off for tonight, man. But other than that, man, I want to say, like, amazing conversation, dude. Like always, like, and I think we're going to be on a streak, and we definitely got to do this again. But I want to let you know, I did you justice, the justice you deserve. Guys, I have the Unexplained Inc. official website. I have the Unexplained Inc. Rumble channel. I have both of Phil's socials, his Facebook and his Instagram, in both the Rumble and the YouTube description for this video. But Phil, if there's anything else that you're working on, or if there's anywhere else anybody can find you, why don't you let them know now?
Sure. Stephen, you nailed it. And thank you again for putting it in the show notes. Just a couple of quick things. So coming up this Friday, new episodes air every Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern time on Rumble and on all audio channels. And the audio episodes are all available on unexplainedinc.com as well. Nice. I have an author and researcher named Betsy Kulikowski who's coming on this Friday's show, and she's had several near-miss encounters with Bigfoot, and she's written an amazing supernatural fiction series. So we get into a lot of that, and we get into where authors pool their imagination and their consciousness from that forms their ideas. Cool. So if you're into that kind of thing, check that out. October 31st, I'm going to be having a really cool panel show. I'm just waiting for a couple of people to confirm, and it's going to be the Four Corners of the Unexplained, moderated by yours truly. Each person's going to have a specialty associated with the unexplained, and we're going to go from there. Expect a reel on that on my socials in the next 7 to 10 days. And it's really cool because I started the show in 2020 and it was a leap year. So this is the first time a show is airing on Halloween night. So
I dig it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. All that I got going on. And I just want to say, Stephen, thank you once again. This just blew by. And in my notes, I still have a ton of stuff we could talk about in the future. So
same here. So what I'm going to be doing, man, is at the the end of season 3 for me is going to be in December. And I take the holidays off, and then I start season 4 in January. But I'm looking to do a panel for the end of season 3, and I want to invite a few people on, and you are definitely on that list, man. So we will definitely continue this conversation. But guys, Phil, if you can just hang out for a couple minutes after we sign off. Guys, I want to say, please check out Phil, check out his show, give him a like, a follow, a subscribe if you liked this conversation tonight. I honestly, every time I sit down with this man, I feel like I could go for hours. Yeah. So but we both got work tomorrow. But nonetheless, guys, thank you for joining us for another BGcast Wednesday live podcast. Next week, I will be back with Transcending Ascension and Samantha Consciously. We are going to be discussing A Course in Miracles and how it could potentially help heal our collective and help bring our spiritual collective up to speed in their own healing as well. So I am looking forward to that show with those two. And other than that, guys, you know what we say here on BGcast. Stay safe, stay free, have that personal sovereignty and that personal agency. And for the love of God, do not be like Elon Musk and stay away from the Japanese sex robots. Okay? For the love of God, why is this even happening? See you guys next week.
Collectively together, you were born to rotate with the crowd. You were born to sync with the sacred spiral. The Hercules stream is proof. The cosmos hummers the divergent. BGcast brings us that Hercules energy. It's here to save the day. You won't stay lost in the dark. Here is your shot with BG kept beside you. Can we rise alone?